So I get this nervous little ping today on my phone before the show from the New York Times. Trump shows signs of strength in Sun Belt battlegrounds. Polls find. Hit the panic button. You mean the campaign of joy and euphoria? Not giving any interviews? Reversing herself on every position she's ever had in her life? You mean that isn't really working? Voters across the Sun Belt. Now I'm reading these words from the New York Times. This is not from Town Hall. This ain't the National Review, I don't know. They sometimes can be anyone's guess. But this is not a reliably conservative publication. It's the New York Times. And I quote, voters across the Sun Belt say that Donald J. Trump improved their lives when he was president and worry that a Kamala Harris White House would not. You think? The polls found that Mr. Trump has gained the leads in Arizona, remains ahead in Georgia. In North Carolina, which has not voted for a Democrat since 2008, Ms. Harris trails Mr. Trump by just a narrow margin. That's the New York Times way of saying she's losing in all the states. Now, she's losing pretty big in Arizona and Georgia, but she trails him by just a narrow margin in North Carolina. And North Carolina, I don't know, that's a mess. This Mark Robinson story has blown up. Trump didn't even acknowledge Robinson, which is probably a smart move strategically, probably a smart political move. I don't know what the story is there. It's a lot of noise. The guy's a real bombastic guy. He's a real red meat kind of a guy who supposedly had some sort of past 20 plus years ago on a porn site. And of course, Democrats see an area of vulnerability there for the governor's race in North Carolina. Conventional wisdom would say, well, that might hurt Trump. If we don't know there's no conventional wisdom by now when it comes to Donald Trump, then you've been in a cave. Arizona, I'm quoting here from the New York Times. I don't often quote from the New York Times, but I will today. But Arizona, which Mr. Biden won by just over 10,400 votes in 2020, now presents a challenge for the Harris campaign. Mr. Trump is ahead 50 to 45. That's in the New York Times poll. Look, polling isn't going to matter when it comes to the election, but I like to say I like our chances. And they are bombing left and right. Kamala won't even go to the Al Smith dinner now. She's so afraid of being in an unscripted moment. I saw pictures of her appearing with Oprah the other day. She's ringed by teleprompters in an Oprah appearance. You don't sit down with a teleprompter if you're sitting down one-on-one with Oprah. Oprah Winfrey was parachuted in to try to help her. And Oprah looked mortified during the interview. They said Oprah looked, I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw the coverage of it. And they didn't realize that in the candid shots that they took of Kamala and Oprah together, they were showing the teleprompters that Kamala was allegedly using. If you've got to use a teleprompter to be interviewed by Oprah Winfrey, you're in big, big trouble. Big trouble. So, here's what I love. They continue to have very real moments like this one, Tim Walz, who might go down in history as one of the worst vice presidential picks in the history of politics. Here he was, legitimately and literally, this is not edited, here's the vice presidential running mate to Kamala Harris.
We can't afford 4 more years of this.
Yep, you're right. We can't afford 4 more years of this. Totally agree. Totally agree with you. And of course, the mainstream media is desperately trying to protect this plastic artificial candidacy of Kamala Harris, who hasn't gotten 1 vote. She hasn't gotten one single vote in any primary. It was really kind of a coup. That's what Lindsey Graham called it over the weekend on NBC's Meet the Press, much to the chagrin of left-leaning host Kirsten Welker.
63 days ago, Chuck Schumer led a coup to overthrow Joe Biden, and he's telling me or any other Republican what we should be doing. If they change the law in Nebraska, it won't be on the phone in the middle of the night. It will be through a democratic process. The entire federal delegation of Nebraska, House members and 2 senators, want this change. To my friends in Nebraska, that one electoral vote could be the difference between Harris being president or not, and she's a disaster for Nebraska and the world.
I hear you calling it a coup. Of course, Democrats have the right to change who's at the top of their ticket.
So does Nebraska.
Yeah, no, they have the right to change it. Oh, yeah, they've got the right. They sure have the right. What a time to be alive. It was great to be away on vacation for a few days in Las Vegas. I'm probably the most unlikely Vegas goer because I don't gamble very much. I play a little bit of the Wheel of Fortune, the big baby game, but I did pretty well, actually. And I don't smoke and I don't drink, but I do love a pool. I love me a great meal, and I was PhD compliant the whole week, doing fine. And I finally unplugged. We had a couple things that came up, work-related, because sometimes the rascals are going to get a little unruly, and I got to step in and weigh in. But that just for a couple of brief moments, and I didn't go on social media hardly at all. Experienced the Sphere. My gosh, the Eagles in concert at the Sphere. I hadn't seen the Sphere yet. My first visit there. Now I'm going to drag Peg and Joey Hudson back because we got to go, and they love the Eagles like I do, and that is one heck of a concert experience. This giant dome where you're in this huge ball. I think it's got 20,000 seats in it, and all through the concert are all these images projected that look so real, and the acoustics, the Eagles never sounded better. I got to hand it to the Eagles. I don't even know who's left in the original band. Not many. But they make sure that they sound in 2024 the way they sounded decades ago, and they sound better than ever. So it was good to kind of recharge the batteries, and now it's crunch time. Now it's kind of go time. Here's Tim Walz, by the way, a guy that would be a heartbeat away from the presidency. Has there ever been, I ask you this sincerely, ever been a worse selection for vice presidential running mate in the history of America?
If J.D. Vance, along with Donald Trump, get the opportunity, the folks getting the tax cuts are going to be the billionaires. They don't care about fixing the cruise control on a 79 International because they can buy whatever they want. Middle-class folks are the ones that need the tax cut. That's what a President Harris administration will do. Vice President Harris and I believe a lot of values, and one of the biggest value that we share together is when the middle class is strong, America's strong. This thing.
Right, you got to pause it. You got to pause it real quick. He's got his hands. You got to see the image of this. It's so embarrassing. He's got his hands like in the engine, and he's pretending to tinker with this truck or whatever he's working on with his camo hat, and he's an everyman. Let's listen some more.
School carburetor. You can always tell something about somebody's maintenance when how clean their air filter is. Look, to be able to work on this thing, you got a manual. It shows you exactly what to do to fix things on this. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have a manual too. It's called Project 2025, and it's a way to stick it to the middle class while giving tax cuts to the wealthiest, rigging our economy to make it more difficult for people. Look, they didn't give me a manual for this if you didn't plan on using it to fix your truck. They didn't create that Project 2025 just to have it set around as a doorstop. My pro tip of the day is silicone-based things around rubber, best thing. You get the wrong material on this stuff dry rots out, and this is like really hard to find. So make
more of that. It's so embarrassing. It's so bad. Look at me. I'm changing the carburetor on a Wagoneer. Oh my gosh. It's bad. So look, from our perspective, good. The Kamala Harris Tim Walz ticket is a total disaster. They know it. We know it. It's why they're losing. It's why Kamala wants another debate suddenly after rejecting it before. And guess what? Please, dear Lord, don't let Trump waver. He has no business going near a debate stage again. Why? He's winning. There's no need to have another debate. For what? That's a sideshow. It's a distraction. And ultimately, I mean, look at this great, I don't like quoting the New York Times, not too often. Do I quote the New York Times? Oh, yeah. He's surging right now in the battleground states, which is what he needs to do. So I like our chances. I'm glad to be back in the saddle. Many thanks to my pals Joey Hudson and Mark Davis for filling in. They both did their usual spectacular jobs. That was actually Mark's debut on Friday. Joey had a conflict, and it was nice to have both of them cover for me because I know the show's in good hands when I'm gone. But I'd like to believe we're in pretty good hands now that I'm back.